to introduce them, they are the journalist, and they are also working as a visiting faculty for BMM, for the MA for Mass Communication and Journalism, then MA for Public Relation at University of Mumbai. Then they are also working as a social worker, Director, Women Against Cyber Abuse Foundation, Associate Member of National Cyber Safety and Security Standard. Then they are also certified trainer of Childline to fight against child abuse, and they are none other than Vibha Singh ma'am. Welcome ma'am, welcome to the session.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me for the session. It was last time also I had a lovely time with you people. And definitely, I don't know, I think today I'll give some insight to students, because I've worked in the magazine industry for nearly 7-8 years. And that was the best period of my life. More than the newspaper, I enjoyed the magazine industry. So I'll give the students insight about that time also, when we were working for Outlook Money. And it was like a revelation for us that there's a major difference when you work for a newspaper and a magazine. Slightly cool atmosphere you have in the magazine thing, and you enjoy it more than what you do in the newspapers, because newspapers, too much of deadline, pressure, everything is there. But magazine, when you write features, you enjoy them because you do lots of research, and in magazines you get lots of liberty also. That is what I found, and more or less what I found was I grew myself, like as an individual, I grew more in magazine than in the newspaper. Because what insight my editors gave me, like I was working for Outlook Money, and I had an editor, Gautam Chikramane, who really initiated so many things and used to tell us to do them. But in newspapers, you don't have so much of time, because deadline is very short. Because deadline is like, if you've been given a story at 12, you'll have to file it by 3 or 4. Magazines, liberty. Features, enjoyment. That is the main thing. So yeah, I'll continue with this thing. While I'm not talking about the whole field, I'll be talking about these experiences also, which we had while we were working for the magazine.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Yes, of course. So before moving ahead in the session, I would like to thank our founder principal of our college, Dr. J.C. Puraswani sir, and I would like to also thank IQAC coordinator Khushbu ma'am, then vice principal, and so thank our HOD, BAMMC HOD, Deepak Gawade sir, and also welcome to all of the students who are joined with us here. And we can start the session, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you very much to the even I like to thank everyone you thank. Actually, I won't be able to name everyone, but especially principal, sir, your department, and definitely the other people who are involved in it, and the students specifically, because they take out time. I'll say these days students actually take out time to listen to us. That's the main thing. And if they enjoy the session, that's like the key. The professors, we as professors, we have a great, we have a thing, this thing that, okay, for education, we have given them something. Thank you so much, sir. I'll start the session. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think the topic has been made very clear. It's TYBAMMC magazine journalism, which we will be discussing all through. But definitely, it is one thing which you all have been studying about. When we talk about print media, the moment we say print media, the thing which comes into our head is simple. Newspaper, magazine, that is what exactly we think about it. And your professors also must have taught you in the first year, second year, even the third year also. Print is one thing which we I will basically, which I told you was I love print. Whatever, whether online has come, digital is there, whatever word broadcast is there, print is something which has existed for ages, not today. And the feel which you get, the morning feel which everybody used to get with the newspapers, and then your Sunday reading with the magazines, used to be a thing which people used to love. And while I was working for Outlook magazine, we used to be like doing lots of surveys, because the time I joined Outlook, it was a period when Outlook had actually, that was a time when Outlook had launched itself in the market, and India Today was the only magazine, if you look at it during those days, the phase starting from, if you look at 1998 to 2000, that was a phase we were gradually entering into an industry where there were lots of competition happening in the industry with magazines. Newspaper competition had ended much before that. The price war, the content war, whatever you talk about in the newspapers was between Hindu, Times of India and all that. That was existing earlier. But the magazine thing gradually, slowly, the whole process, what you say is, it happened actually now, it started in 80s, but the thing was that what we saw actually as a magazine culture that started during the phase of starting from 90s to 2000, we saw lots of magazines being launched, and everybody, the culture also of magazine was very different. Even the working culture, I'd say, not exactly of the look of the magazine, the culture was very different. What we were looking at was a different atmosphere where we had 6 hours of job culture if you look at it in our newspapers. We had shifts because the newspaper had to be produced in like it was a one-day kind of a thing. In every shift, a 6-hour shift used to be there in earlier days. Now the things have changed. Now you are not seeing that kind of a thing, which when we joined as journalists, we had those in newspaper 6-hour shift, but in magazines, when you work for a weekly magazine, you had a shifting. When I shifted from a newspaper, I shifted from Hindustan Times to Outlook magazine. So that was a time when I realized the difference between working for a magazine and working for a newspaper. Working for the newspaper, I had strict deadlines, and every day was a pressure day for me. And then I used to be like running after 5 Ws and 1 H, which my editor used to tell me, yeah, this is the story. And if we were following a crime story, again a different issue. And in the newspapers also, when we shifted over to even the similar kind of a thing like magazines, every newspaper had those supplements which come weekly. And those supplements even were the ones where we had a slightly research-oriented approach and everything, which I learned in the newspapers with the supplements, that there's a research which is involved when you write for a magazine article. So that is the key difference. One, magazine is more of research-oriented because that is what you must have studied till now also. Newspaper is when you write news, it's 5 Ws and 1 H, and when you have to explain it further, when you describe it, descriptive, what we say, you move on to a magazine, this thing. So that's the reason when you see on your Sunday paper, when you receive a magazine like by Outlook, India Today, you must be reading all those news, whether it's a news about any kind of elections, if ongoing, like if it's an ongoing election thing happening, whether it's some religious this thing happening in our country, whether it's a war, whether it was a pandemic, COVID, the newspaper used to give you a daily report. A daily report means telling about the vaccine, 5 Ws and 1 H, when it is launched, what is the use of it, finished. But then you had a magazine article on Sunday or whenever the magazine was coming out, because the weekly magazines, normally they have their periodicity when they launch out on Monday, you receive the editions on Monday or Sunday. They used to give you the whole eye of what happened exactly in the 1 week about the vaccine thing. So what happens is someone is not able to follow the news every day. He's not able to read the newspaper every day. He's not able to read the online news every day. That also is not possible. Now, online has made things very different for all of us. Digitally, the world has changed the culture of news in a very different way. But even then, the magazine, what we say, the features which are written there, there used to be a kind of a feel which everybody used to feel. If I have not got the news, let me go through the feature article because that will provide me everything. It will give me to-do list. It will give me what is happening, where it is happening, that thing is covered along with an explanation. So that is exactly what is magazine. What is magazine? Journalism, when we say it, definitely, if somebody wants to join a magazine, you will definitely enjoy it. But first we'll understand what exactly it is, the journey behind it, the colorful pictures, everybody gets, when we talk about newspapers, definitely when we talk about broadsheet, it comes to, the moment you close your eyes, you think about it as a black and white this thing or something like that, because news is said to be black and white only. But when it comes to magazine, when we talk about the beautiful word of magazines, this is what it is. Colors, colors, colors. And what happens is when you have colors, when you have design, what happens? How do we get excited about something? See, but when you go in a marriage or when you attend any of these functions and something like that, there's bright light. Everybody has wearing a beautiful attire, different faces, and you love that thing. Exactly when I teach my students I used to be teaching about magazine designing, I used to be talking to them like that only. Imagine a bride. How will you decorate a bride? And how, like, not exactly how a beautician, how she imagines a bride. They're different when when you look at a girl, when she is a normal, simple girl standing before you, and the moment she comes out of a place where if she's gone to a saloon, like any of those parlors or something like that, for her marriage, this thing, when she comes out, you look at the bride and you all say, wow, this is exactly a magazine. This is what I talk to you about, a design thing. Magazine design is the one which needs to have this wow factor. Because if you have this wow factor, then only anyone, an audience is going to pick up your magazine. See, you have lots of newspapers in the market which people will read for news. It's okay. What are you offering them new then? You're offering them something like this. The cover page of India Today, if you look at it, BJP Mission 2022, wonderful. You have all the players' pictures there, which you don't get in a newspaper at one place, exactly placed there. The cover plays a very, very important role in the magazine as such. Parent circle, if you look at it, lovely picture. Pictures are the key players in the magazine thing. And then comes in, if you look at the upper crust, good food magazines, all those, why do we actually, when we say our taste buds get enhanced, it is when we see pictures like this. You are not feeling like eating a cake, but when you see a picture like this, cheers to Christmas, which you see here, certainly something happens to your taste buds, you want to have a cake. This is what is the difference between a newspaper and a magazine. Action. You take a quick action because you want to have that thing, because one, you eyes, what our eyes wants to see, beautiful things. What our taste buds want to, what do you want? We want to eat something which is palatable. One is definitely palatable, and one which actually is we feel, okay, this is something which I wanted to have for such a long time. Then comes in news. When you look at this picture, we all have been like hearing about elections and all that. Now, when they said BJP Mission 2022, definitely we all get into this thing, because we have been reading about politics so much, we have been reading about business so much. But if somebody gives us a concise and a brief, whatever we are thinking about it in one, and then they have their viewpoints also, not exactly the feature writer doesn't give their viewpoints, but definitely they have quotes from key people who actually give you an insight into the subject, whether it's a political subject, whether it's a business subject, whether it's sports, whether it's simple parenting, whether it's a mental health, anything, whether even it's a health issue, anything. These days, beautifully written features are being one which we are circulated on the internet as such. All your WhatsApp groups, if you look at it, all those articles which you're getting, they're one form of earlier written feature articles. So when now that was what exactly is magazine, which I showed you a small, this thing, a feel of a magazine. But do you know any of these people? All of us know about the broadcast journalists. We know about Barkha Dutt. We know about all of them, like the one whose visibility is on the screen. We all know them very well. All of us are aware of all those like most of broadcasters who are giving us information. But do you know any of these people? The first picture which you see on your screen is Arun Puri. He's the person, you've heard about this magazine called India Today. He's the person who is the founder of India Today. And he is at present the chief executive of the India Today group. If I look at the magazine industry as such, I really remember this person because I've heard so many of lectures of his, because when we were working for Outlook, we used to be always looking at our competitors. We were told to look at our competitors, what exactly is the difference. So during the time when I was working for Outlook, there used to be a big competition in terms of stories, in terms of design, in terms of everything. We used to be competing with India Today. So Arun Puri is one person whom I have followed up for a long time as a journalist. Many people who actually the journalists at present who are working there, we all of us mostly focus on basically the broadcasting, the television journalists and all that. But the magazine journalists as such have played a very, very important role in that. Khushwant Singh is one person. I think all of you must have heard his name in different formats. He was as an author, as a politician, as a person who used to speak. But Khushwant Singh was one person who was who's the editor of the Illustrated Weekly, the magazine which had articles which were read by people for long. Then is someone called Sanjay Sahai. He is the editor of Hans. It's a Hindi literary magazine. I think if somebody wants to go in, not exactly if you don't want to go also, but do read some of the articles of Sanjay Sahai. Beautifully written articles where he actually criticized the political, the societal, and the literary issues in such a beautiful manner. So that is the feel of our magazine. Because what happens is with the flow, normally what we say is when we write for the newspapers, I'm not able to do justice to the story that we say always, because what I'm doing is I'm just covering the story. I'm writing a feature. I'm just giving you 5 W's and 1 H. But when I write a feature, when I write for the magazine, there's something which goes inside it, which gives an insight to the people in a larger way. Priya Tanna, she's a fashion blogger, and she was the editor for the Vogue India for a long time. Do follow her for some of her stories, beautifully written stories, beautiful written features, and the way she had edited the magazine for a long time. It was remarkable. And these are some journalists we should not forget, because they are the ones who have actually taken forward the field of magazine journalism as such. Now we'll come to the term in terms of your subject and your paper for the examination point of view. When we talk about magazine, what does it mean? Magazine क्या होता है? बहुत बारी पूछा जाता है क्या है? क्यों इसको ये word आया ही क्यों? Why this? When there were newspapers, why did we have to have this new thing or something like that? When we say etymology, this is a very important thing for journalists to understand, because we work with words. हम लोग किससे काम करते हैं? शब्दों से. हम लोग का सब कुछ शब्द है. हम लोग लिखते भी हैं, बोलते भी हैं. Whatever you say, it's all words. So etymology is actually a study where we understand कि शब्द आया कहाँ से, where does this word come from, इसका meaning क्या है, इसका structure क्या है. So in terms of magazine, when we talk about it, this term first time appeared in the English language, अगर जिसको बोलेंगे हम लोग 1518 में. That time this term was used exactly for the warehouses, जहाँ पे हम अपने goods store करते हैं या military ammunition का करते हैं. And then there was a word in Middle French word which was called magazine, and which also meant warehouse, depot, or a store. In Italiano word, there was a word called magazzino, and in Arabic it was called magazine. Why we in Arabic we call it a magazine? It's not. I pronounce it in that way because that's an English term. But when you pronounce it in Arabic, it's called magazine, because it's a plural form of magzan. That actually means a storehouse. So we these days we actually don't use all these terms or these meanings or whatever it is. But in 1868, this word actually acquired a big meaning, because there was a catalytic chamber, which they used to say, which was for repeating the rifles, that thing. And from that time, from 1731, we actually started having a reference to magazines. They were the periodical journals which contained lots of information, miscellaneous writings, which you had. And if you just go back to the history, or if you just look at the history, there are lots of things which you'll see. Which have actually made magazines as magazines, which we will be discussing in a smaller way, because I was not able to put in everything in this lecture, but I'll give you 2-3 links which you can study later on, which will be very helpful to you. So what exactly is a magazine? So when we talk about this word magazine as such, that was the etymology from where this word came from. Now, this word magazine actually was coined by Edward Cave, and he took it from the last word which I told you was magazine. So which I told you was exactly a storehouse which was bundled together in one package. And the first English periodical magazine, which you look at it, was the Gentleman magazine, which was founded in 1731. And in those magazines, those days, there was everything. You had poems, you had essays, you had the stories, you had political musings. There was no classification of the content as such. Everything went in those magazines. So basically, if you describe it as an exam, if in examination there's something like that, the simple definitions which have been given are: a magazine is explained to you as a periodical that contains a variety of articles as well as illustrations, which are of entertaining, promotional, and instructive nature. And Collins Dictionary has actually defined this term in a very good way, which is, it says very clearly that magazine is a publication with a paper cover which is issued regularly, usually every week or every month, and which contains articles, stories, photographs, and advertisements. That is exactly a simple, what you say is a magazine. If you have to understand, if you're doing the examination, is a question like this is the simple definition. And what are now understanding a magazine? Kya hota hai? Like in the newspaper terms, when we talk about the newspaper, we say you have a cover, you have a page 1, you have page 2, you have page 3, you have page 4, like that. The newspaper, the pages are defined. Your page first, the front page is the news page, then you have a city page. 2 pages are given for city. Next 2 pages are given for your state, then nation. It goes on further like that. You have your business pages. You have similarly. Magazine also is exactly like that. But what exactly it contains all the features. It contains stories. It contains poems. Also many of different magazines, different genre. Articles, fictions, your recipes, your images, in-depth coverage, analysis of subject other than the newspapers. And most of the magazine actually cover, generally they cover feature articles on different topics targeted. Many times, which we'll be talking about is the specialized magazine. They have a targeted audience. And the periodicity of the magazine, which we talk about, newspapers, you know very well, newspapers are daily newspapers. We have even weekly newspapers. Similarly, magazines are, when we talk about the publishing part, they are weekly, bi-weekly, they are monthly, they are bi-monthly, they are quarterly. And then in case of magazines, the page matters a lot. Your print quality matters a lot, because most of the magazines, they are printed in color, because the magazines you saw in the beginning, they all were printed in color. They have a coated paper, many of them. Many of them are bound also with a soft cover. So in simple terms, when we say it, the better the visual narrative of the magazine, the more it appears to the specific audience. So the publisher, whoever who takes care of the magazine, they're very particular about it, because if they have to lure the advertisers, the people, and if they have to share the product with the readers, they have to make it very, very attractive. So this was what basically is what we talked about. This is exactly, now we'll come to other part of it, the content part of it, the history of. That was exactly how it developed. Now we'll come to the history of magazine in the terms of content. The 1700s was a phase when there was literacy, gradually literacy happening. There was intellectual development which was happening in the society in Europe as such, if we talk about it. India, we were still struggling for so many things, but these magazines were the ones which were involved with the knowledge, hunger for knowledge, jisko bolte hain. That was a thing which these magazines actually were satisfying of the people, because there was a group of people who were actually looking at the cultural part. Those days, many periodicals had come in, but those periodicals were very expensive, and most of the people couldn't afford them. But because of the literacy which had come, and I'll say intellectual literacy which had come in, the targeted people, they were looking at more articles which were more informative, educative, and entertaining as such also. So the earlier publications were focused towards learned people, cultured people as such. In Europe, these are the terminologies which are used, or the words which are used to describe a genre of society which they said the cream of the society. A sophisticated individual was looked upon as this something, and individual was being identified in this way only, that you read this kind of a literature, you read this kind of a literature. The intellectual level of a person was being judged by these by the kind of reading he used to do, and that was the reason the magazines, the periodicals, their readership started increasing in this phase. The content, what we say, was the one which was the key aspect of people going towards them. This is a link which you can all see it. This is called Britannica.com, has a beautiful article on magazine publishing, which you can go through it, where you'll find lots of insights which will give you an idea about how this industry actually, and why magazines as such became popular with people. Now, gradually with the time, what happened was that there was this magazine called the Gentleman magazine, which actually ran from 1731 until 1922 for many, many reasons, because there were lots of things they had covered in this. As such, if you look at it, the first magazine was an edifying monthly discussion that was called Erbliches Monats Unitum. That was a German literary and philosophy publication, and it was the earliest example of a magazine, and it was launched in Germany in 1663. And if you look at the Wikipedia, if we go to the information given by them, they actually talk about the Gentleman magazine, which was first published, according to them, that was the first published thing in 1731. And in London, this was a general interest magazine as such, because it actually moved on. This magazine was founded by Herbert de Gramme in 1842. So the history of magazine, if you go about it, this is the basic history. The one which we say, that there have been talks about periodicals, but the recorded history, if you look at in books, if you look at in done by researchers who have found out that the colorful sketches, illustrations, which actually contributed to the magazine sales in 1842, because that was a period when actually magazines were recognized. And there was a British news agent called Herbert Ingram. He was the first one to create the first illustrated magazine that was called the Illustrated London News, which had lots of dozens of woodcut designs in it. And gradually the magazine industry started with the design thing. Now, earlier, the first thing we talked about was introduction of the magazines as such, which was in the form of periodicals, everything going into them. Then came in the phase, which was a content phase, where people realized that a good content, explanatory content, descriptive content, something which was analyzing the situation, was needed, and then came in a phase, how do we present that now? We have the content now, the content, if it is just a simple, the way the one you saw it, I'll just show you the first, this one first. If you see something like this, nobody gets interested into it. Now came in the time when people started realizing the importance of pictures, importance of illustrations, and magazines now became a very popular mode in America in the 18th century as such, if you look at it. And in India also, we had this first magazine, which was published by the British Oriental Magazine, or the Calcutta Amusement 1785 to 1886 was a phase of this magazine. And if you look at the first Indian magazine, that was The Week, and it was founded in the year 1982 and was published by the Malayalam Roma group. India Today had been having its own talk about it, but if you look at the illustrated thing, India Today is considered to be the magazine which actually made people understand that magazine has a own culture, magazine, the importance of the magazine, if we talk about it. This is something which the Illustrated London News had it as a magazine, this thing. So now came in the progressive era, which we talk about it. That was a period which started from 1890s to 1920s, when journalists as such were, the magazine journalists who started on with the investigative journalism started being identified, and they were called muckrackers that time because they were the ones who were investigating. Till now, it was anything, everything going into this thing, but now came in the phase, gradual phase from 1920s, when we had the coverage of corruption, politics, local government, big businesses, which those investigative journalists whom we identify at today also, those were the people who were doing it. So if we look at it, the first American magazine was Andrew Watford's American magazine and Benjamin Franklin's Journal magazine in 1741. For the first magazine for the young girls was the Young Missy's magazine, which appeared in 1806. And the first famous American woman magazine was Godse's Lady's Book, which was published in 1830. And due to the improvement in the printing techniques, which you saw gradually with time, 1819, there was an increased use of advertising, which we saw on that period only. Because the production cost had increased because we had pictures, we had everything. Now there was also a boom in the circulation. So in 1923, Times Magazine came up, and then came up the Newsweek in 1933. So idea behind all these magazines, which came up during the period of World War, when we say from the period between the First World War to the Second World War, all these magazines were brought up just to keep in touch with the fast changing conditions, because there were lots of things happening. Many countries were getting independent, like India got its independence in 1947. Along with that, the Second World War was going on everywhere in the world. There was lots of turmoil. So these magazines played a very important role while making a connect between the people. And in India, as such, 1980s was, which I told you, was a boom in the publication of the magazines. And not only in English, but on all the Indian languages. Stardust was the first magazine which started the culture of film journalism. And we all used to follow Stardust like anything. India Today is considered to be exactly as what we say is upmarket serious journalism kind of a thing. And then we had these specialized magazines which came in, lots of them. And now the online version of all these magazines are available. But the magazine which had played a very important role was the Illustrated Weekly of India. This was the magazine which was closed down in 1993, but it started in 1883. And if you look at it, during the time 1880s, when Times of India had come out with this weekly edition, it was firstly 1880 in Times of India was there. In 1923, they had this Illustrated Weekly of India, due to which actually the magazine culture was introduced in the country. So if you look at it, the magazine which was edited, this magazine was edited by A.S. Raman, Khushwant Singh, M.V. Kawat, and Pratish Nandi. A.S. Raman, they were some of the people who actually made major difference. And then was a thing which we talk about so much in journalism is the cartoons. In this magazine, R.K. Lakshman and Mario Miranda were the two people who were coming out with cartoons, and they were lovely stuff, which cartoons actually stayed in for a long time. And all those depiction of cartoons were the ones which were a key to any industry, whether it was a newspaper or a magazine, because people used to love those cartoons, and R.K. Lakshman cartoons were the ones which we all used to wait for, because they had a political insight, which was given in a very simple way, which was explained to people in a very simple way by the means of a cartoon. So now this was a magazine, this thing, but now coming back to a thing which is very important for us to understand is what is the difference between magazines and newspapers. So if we look at it, a magazine actually is a book type. You have seen A4, there are different sizes to it, A3 also, because here what happens is you can scan the entire page without a fold. They're smaller in size, definitely, and expensive than the newspapers. Newspapers are bigger in size, which you have seen, which you must have done in your designing also this thing. You have your newspapers which There are broadsheets, there are tabloids, and then you go in for different sizes in tabloids and broadsheet also. And then, yeah, more or less, if you look at the pricing, inexpensive. Now we come to the content part of the magazines. Magazines, many of them definitely specialized topic, the fresh content till the time they come out with the feature articles, they start put in the latest this thing at us. When we talk about the content of the newspapers, yeah, definitely most of them, if you look at it as a coverage of 5 Ws and 1 H, reports are, it's basically a news report which we look at it. Here we find newspapers because they're the primary source of what we get every day, what is happening around the world. Slightly, what you get the information is more descriptive when you talk about the magazines. So in magazines, the style is different because here what I told you was slightly the writer also, there is a style sheet which is followed, but even then you at least have a freedom to express your creativity there. In newspapers, the first factor is you have your catchy headlines, and every newspaper follows a style sheet which you have to follow, irrespective of what kind of a story you've given, because even we do have specialized reports, we have interpretive articles, investigative articles, but every newspaper has its own style sheet which they follow for when they go in for final production. Magazines, again, a targeted audience you have. Magazine actually, if you look at it, if the magazine is specialized magazine, they will have a specified group of people, targeted audience who will be going for that magazine. Newspapers are focused on general audience as such. Your geography, your where the newspaper is being published from, that is exactly we keep in mind when we put it. So that was exactly in a print industry, what we take care of it. These 3 factors: one is content, one is style, then is your target audience. Now, what is the classification? The magazines, when they are classified, they are classified in terms of your language, your target audience interest. And if you look at it, there are different genres of magazine, and each magazine, if you look at it, it has its own characteristic design. They have their own topics. They have their, if it's a scholarly journal also, which has been converted into a magazine. Trade magazines, at present, after the globalization of the country, we saw lots of trade magazines coming into picture because they were talking about the industry trends, new products, globalization, liberalization, these terms which we defined it, because there were lots of magazines which came into the sector of insurance, banking. Business magazines actually got lots of leverage after the globalization. Pre-globalization, because it was the service sector was not that much open. Now you have FMCGs, you have so many food magazines. It is only the result of what happened during the basically looking at the part what happened after liberalization and globalization, what changes they brought about after 1991. The general interest magazines had been existing, and they were the ones which were actually, what we say, the main purpose of these was to look at all the kind of information like Lataji's death, if there's a change in the form of governance or whatever it is. You have your Time, you have Newsweek, you have Outlook, you have India Today, your Week. These are the general interest magazines. Here, writing, you don't need so much of background knowledge or expertise, but you should be a good reporter, a good writer as such. Because here what you do is you are actually doing a daily kind of a reporting, but taking it a step forward, because you're not exactly just saying that Lataji has passed away. What you're going to talk about is a history. You're going to talk about her background. What was the opinion of the people about her, her music, whatever exactly you could actually club down about Lataji in one. This thing is what is needed when you write in a magazine, not exactly in what you write in a newspaper as such. Then there are special interest magazines, which are directed towards your specific group of readers who have your common interest, if it's a golf digest, you that will carry all the stories which are related to the golf thing. Then comes in your special interest magazines, which are targeted towards your specific group of readers, which have which they talk about the content and the target audience. Like the business magazines, we have is Business Today, Forbes, The Economist. Sports magazines, we have Sports Star, Cricket Today, Runner's World. Children's magazines, we have Champak. We have Disney Princess, Chanda Mama. Women magazine, we have Femina, Women's Era, Nari.com. Entertainment magazine, we have Stardust, Filmfare. You have career magazines, you have IT magazines, you have photography magazines, auto magazines. All these are all directed towards a specific group of readers who have their common interests. Then comes in how the departmentalization is done, departments of a magazine. We have an editorial department which collects news, information, which writes analysis, which edit articles, interviews. You have an advertising department which deals with your clients, your agencies, your medias. These days we have a marketing department also. We have a PR department also. Then comes in your design department, which is a very important department for the magazine, because here is this department actually works in for everything. It works for designing your not only the magazine, your exhibitions, your promotions, because a magazine can't survive these days without having these promotions, or many times these tie-ups which we have with the different dance, like if there's a concert happening, there's a celebrity talk happening, then magazines do tie up with them for the revenue base of them. So now comes in when the departments, then there are two people who are key people in a magazine. One is a publisher and one is an editor. The publisher is responsible for all the operations of the magazine, and he is the one who actually looks at all the goals, like what is the target, what exactly financially, everything he looks at it. He actually, the surveys which are done, the reader surveys, the advertiser surveys, having a relationship with them, he's the one who is responsible for all that. And even then, his own personal resources he uses for them, whether it is market research, we talk about the current economic thing, or the business press, whatever. We in Outlook magazine, we had a brilliant marketing guy who was called, who's like, if you go through and search, look at just the part of it, like if you see the history of this thing, Maheshwar Peri, a very like, I'll appreciate him as a very good marketing person, because he was the one whom I had seen making instrumental lots of Outlook products, like Outlook Traveler, Outlook Money. All those magazines were the one he was actually, I used to be seeing him, how he used to be telling our editors also, how he used to be conducting the meetings. That is exactly the role of the publisher and the marketing guys and everyone when he takes them forward with everyone, because whenever there's a new product which has to be launched in terms of magazine, there's lots of what you say is research which goes on, lots of analysis which goes on, which exactly as when we work as when you work as journalist, it is not that your job is only to write stories and finish them off. Okay, I filed my copy, my job is over. When we are involved with any of the publications, we are involved in everything these days. We are involved with marketing, we are involved with advertising, because we have to understand those departments also, because they are the ones who are going to bring revenue. It's not me as a journalist who's bringing the revenue. Revenue is being brought out by the marketing and the advertising guys. So we also need to understand the needs of the market when we write our features. Then comes in the roles of the editor. Now comes in my role, because editor, I'm not editor. I won't say all of us are going to be editors. We are going to be writers. We are going to be correspondents, all of them. But when we understand what our editor wants from us, it becomes very easy for us to write our stories. It becomes very easier for us to file our copies, or what we say is have a focus of our stories. So the editor actually is responsible for actually looking at the magazine's editorial pages. He takes care of the words, the pictures, and the consistency or the language also, which I'll say, and also the editorial mission of the magazine. Because see, every magazine, every product, even as a human being also, as like me and you also, we all have a mission in our life. Similarly, a magazine has a mission in life, which we need to understand when we join them. And that is what exactly the editor keeps into concern when he does it. So his need is first definitely to his people, the audience, should be actually able to, the audience, the readers, whomever you say, those people are actually are they able to understand the content? The first thing is understanding the content of the this thing, because people buy the magazine only to one is pictures. Normally it is for the travel magazines. People buy pictures for pictures and everything. But most of us do buy magazines for information, education, and entertainment, and that is the key role which the editor plays in giving us all those things, and giving definitely the editorial direction and the thing. This is what is very important for us as magazine journalists to understand: is who is my audience. I'm writing for a children's magazine. I'm writing for a travel magazine. I'm writing for a business magazine. I'm writing for a journal magazine. I'm writing for a trade magazine. I have entered into a magazine, this thing, but who is my audience? Why this audience is going to read my publication? One, definitely I told you, was one, information. Something is entertainment, sometimes inspirational talks. Whenever you read all these, not exactly the books from Art of Living, magazines from Art of Living, and all those groups, something people take is for inspirational purpose. One is for aspirational person, career things, educational, technical. Who are they? Like, who's the person who's going to read my article? If I'm working for I'm working for Career 360, which is a magazine which is basically focusing upon jobs and all that. I should be very clear about who is the people who are going to read my magazine, the age, the economic status of those people, the educational level of those people. Because if you put in something, you're selling product which is of telling them to buy a product in your article for 5 lakh rupees, and the person doesn't have that economic status, then you are losing out one of your readers. Educational level, ethnicity of the people, that is very important. We have to understand when we say ethics of journalism are something which are related to all these factors: community affiliations, gender, interest, job, location, political biases. Something which is why we need to understand our audiences for a purpose which is called the ethics of journalism, which we have been talking about it. As journalists, we need to be following some standards. Then there's something called accuracy, something which is called brevity, which is as brief as possible. And then something which we need to focus upon as a magazine journalist is looking at the part, am I going to hurt someone? Is someone going to be hurt by the story I'm writing? This is in terms of when you're writing a political article, you're covering sensitive issues. As India, we know there are lots of sensitive issues which we do cover, and we should always keep our biases at one stage. So the skills now we'll talk about is what you need to have when you are joining as a journalist or anything in a magazine. This thing you need, because most of the good investigative stories all over the world have been done by magazines or journalists as such, if you look at it. So you need to uncover great stories, report accurately. For that, you need to be communicative. Good communication skills, what we say. One special skill which I find for all journalists, is not a magazine journalist or a newspaper journalist, is how you connect with the people, empathy. When you see someone, it's not like that he's a story for me. He should be someone who's a victim who has faced so much. He can't be a story for me. I have to actually, what do is, if you want to take out from any person a good story, you have to align with him in a very simple way. You need to actually attach to him in a way that he gives out the story for you. So for the specialized magazine, definitely when you're working for a business magazines, you need to know the technical details. And how do you start it? Definitely, sometimes you start as interns in magazines, sometimes you start as editorial assistants in magazine, sometimes you start as freelancers also. In the end, you turn up when you've been writing for a long time, and if your articles are good, they call you up for that thing. And now we'll talk about the content of the magazine. The first or the key part is the cover story, which you have seen. This cover story of a Afghan girl, her eyes were the one which were talked about for such a long time. So the cover story matters a lot in and the cover page, both of them, they matter a lot in the magazine, not more than a newspaper. In a magazine, this is the first factor you have to look at it, because there you need to have good headlines, a stunning headline, I should say, because that would make a reader buy your magazine. And if the content part, if it is not up to the mark for a long time, you're not bringing out a very good content, people will stop reading your magazine. And the cover story, definitely the key factor is it should be very well written. Lots of research should go into it, solid documentation, what they say. This is what basically is the content part, which you can, when you are designing a magazine, you can go to Canva. Canva has a beautiful, they've come out with lots of stuff about magazines, which I've really liked it. And then there's this blog called Beachy's blog, where he has given very beautiful way how to present your table of contents. So now lots of resources are available to us online, where which we can do it. So this is the content of the magazine. One is the editorial, which you see there's the editor's word, and then you have lots of cartoons which talk about this thing. Then the key factor is the feature stories. Now, what kind of feature stories you have? Feature stories are the one which are descriptive. So we have news features, we have human interest features, we have historical features, we have profiles or personality features, we have photo features, we have reviews, we have columns, which you see in the magazine, and we do write for all of them. So the news features are the one which there's a story which is a current story which is going on, and you actually follow that up with all the backgrounder, and then you actually tell about what happened. The conclusion also you give in that. Similarly, human interest features, something which is related to the pandemic, current something which is happening. So all these are very explanatory. There's nothing much to explain, but the main difference we should understand is difference between a news story and a feature story, because that is what will make your writing different from the newspaper writing. Because many times what happens is we confuse the newspaper writing with the magazine writing. So when we say news story and a feature story, there's a content which where you'll have in the news story, you have a recent or a breaking news. But in the feature, you have any issues, it could be any news related or a human interest story. The intro, what you do is in a news story, you summarize the story in a nutshell, which you've been explained to you many times. But in feature story, what you have is a human focus, or what you do is you tell an anecdote in that. Sources and angles are, you have a news story could be from one source, angle could be one, but in feature, you have variety of sources, you have variety of angles, because you have to explain that very well. And the structure in news story you follow is an inverted pyramid. In feature stories, there are lots of structures which are available to you. They are more flexible. You can take a linear structure, go straight for one A, B, C, D, E, F, non-linear. You could explain anecdote and then go with a story. A storytelling format, like in a fiction, in a novel, you have it. Magazine writing, that's the reason why they say is an element of entertainment, because the magazine writer, they have show schemes like that, and the conclusion is very important. So when you are writing for the magazine, you have to actually, many times we also have personal opinion features in that. Many times they have moral essays also in that. But the key focus is that your key elements of this writing is, there's an element of storytelling which you should have. There should be a detail and a description you should be giving. Facts and opinions should be very clear. There should be a strong angle. And then it should have a structured argument in that. This is a key factor which you can't miss out. Then there could be something like that, where you can use some of the literary devices. You could use you could use novels, you could use like if you're writing a historical this thing, you could go back to history, bring out something from there. As compared to the news articles, the feature articles are slow. You can write on a slow pace, you can use jargons, you can have your own personal viewpoints. And if you make it run like a movie, people love it. And then you can also play with your perspective. That is exactly very, very important. And then more informal style you have it, and that is exactly what is needed. And so the basics of magazine writing are, which I told you was know the people who you're writing for, what you want to achieve in your article, be accurate, keep the material and your sentences short, have a vibrant style, know your publication's editorial policy. And many times what happens is most of us as writers of magazine, we have our own opinions, anecdotes, gossipy style, which we can use it, because that actually makes our magazine right. But it differs from feature to feature. Again, I'm telling you. But you have what we say is that you have a say when you write it. So the main thing which you have to keep in view is the quality of the content and style, which are very, very important. Word, it plays a very important role in the trick, and the style, how you make the piece entertaining for the people to read. So these are the basic magazine writing styles. We have a narrative style, which is how you narrate a story. Serialized, when you go on with anecdotes and you keep on explaining the story. Descriptive writing, when you describe something. Persuasive, when you persuade something to buy, like a politician who persuades you to give vote to him. Imaginative, when you start imagining, or sometimes we use it. This is for many other this thing when you're writing travel writing also. Visual writing, multiple inverted pyramids, when you explain different in the same story, you explain many of those angles which were related to many of the crime stories have been done in this way. So the magazine, but the best magazine style, which is definitely, which I point out is, which is accessible. People can read it. People can feel like reading it, which is lively, which is colorful, not in terms of investigative crime stories, which is grabbing, which is relevant, which people will enjoy and people will actually get hooked to it, which we say. So this is the simple structure of a magazine article. If you look at it, you need to tell a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an ending, and there's an extra credit, because if you've done more research, we put them in boxes in that article. And further, very important is the editing. Forget the writing, you've done it, but if you've not done a very good editing, in terms of editing, you need to know your grammar very well. You need to actually understand what kind of words you are using, adjectives what you're using, adverbs you're using, alternative words you're using. Like in terms very big, simple, you can use huge. Really bad, you can use terrible. Very beautiful, you can use gorgeous. Scared, terrified. Dirty, filthy. This is, I'm just giving you a small gist of editing. There's lots more into magazine editing, because it's one thing which is needed, but the key aspect of editing, which is available for everyone, is keep it simple. As simple as your writing is in terms of jargons, vocabulary, people will love reading it. Now, the most important factor is in magazine is importance of design. This is the basic design, because the magazine design, it plays a very, very important role in two things. One is in your selling and one is in your advertising, because that is what, and these days lots of different kind of designs are being used, and these magazine design, actually what they say is the one key factor which attracts the reader. So this is the simple thing which you have to follow. In a magazine, this thing, this is simple page which I'm showing you, where you need to have a folio, you need to have a full quote, you need to have a body, you need to have an introductory paragraph, you need to have a headline. caption for your images, your box copy. This is a basic of a design in a magazine. Then how do you make a magazine? कैसे हम एक basic magazine बनाते हैं? We pick up a topic. फिर हम एक टाइटल चूज करते हैं, एक कवर आर्टिकल बनाते हैं, एक कवर इमेज बनाते हैं जिसको हम लोग डमी बनाते हैं. एक डमी जिसको बोलते हैं वो ये आई एम शोइंग यू दैट बेसिक डमी ऑफ इट. You have you decide about your cover image. You think about your masthead. What kind of a masthead? Like Coco, you see it, a very simple masthead. Your masthead, you write your body articles or your copies. You get the articles, like in a sense, you get articles from different sources. Maybe your cover article you have written, rest of the articles are written by different people. You have graphics, you have images, you decide upon all your feature articles, then there are thumbnails inside it. Then you create your table of content, which I showed you, and then you have a back page. And this is artstation.com is a beautiful this thing where you will see lots of magazine designs which will be relevant to you. Then comes in the printing of the magazine, where you need to be, where we need to understand that the paper quality matters a lot in magazine, because you need a glossy paper for the best image quality. In this case, what they say is if you are coming out with your own magazine, or even you're working for a publication, you should always check for the paper layout, because that is a very, very important thing in a magazine. That the full bleed when you're giving, as many times as sub-editors, when we work in a magazine, we need to check out all these things, because then there's something called the bleed, which you have seen that the sometimes there's a word or something which goes out after the beyond the margin or whatever it is. Exactly, these are things which we need to focus when we do the printing of the magazine. Nowadays, there has been a talk about the online magazine, and online magazine is definitely, you've seen most of the magazines are coming online, but there are some magazines which have just come up online only. They're printing, they're not available in the print this thing. And in this case, the first magazine was the computer magazine, which was called TYBAMMC. You'll get lots of information about that in a very good publication which has come out of e-magazines, which talks about that. And exactly what they're talking about is there is a future in online magazines also, which is a brilliant future. But what, as a journalist, we become bloggers. They're more than in what they say is when you are working for the online magazines, we are more bloggers than columnists as such. But yeah, definitely in the online magazines, we are covering lots of real-time topics also, and they have become very interactive. More than the print magazines, they are interactive. But the current genre of people who are into print journalism or who are working in the print journalism, what they feel is digital journalism definitely is going to change the industry, and we are going to see lots of things. But what they say is that you should stop saying this thing that print journalism is dead. During the COVID time, only 60 magazines was launched, which were during this crazy year, they said like this. And they said when there was a negative growth, which was being registered by the magazines, what is going to happen in the future is we are going to see that the formats will be redefined, reimagination will happen. The magazine, what they say is a golden era is going to come. And the group editorial director, publisher of India Today Group, he gave an interview to Exchange for Media, where he said a very good thing. He said that the biggest challenge is how the technology has made news available anywhere, anytime. The most popular platform is emerging to be the smartphone. However, it has its own limitation. If you look at most of the news items on the net, it follows a cookie cutter approach, as one item looks like the other. There's no discrimination between news items, while print is all about display, size of the headline, the picture that we used, and even the graphics. Also, there is too much of news, and the scope of having credible news has diminished, and people are getting confused by all this, while people are looking for its relevance and credible news. This was one statement where he said that print journalism is going to stay, and why even digital can't give a competition to print because it has its own advantages. And then he talked something about the magazine journalism and talked about the curated content and the distilled information, which is a magazine, this thing. He said that the magazines, what magazines do is to take complex information, distill it in and bring clarity. So the clarity which print magazines can bring out has better writing, better display, better visual, and it is an art by itself. So while there is a huge explosion of news, most people are seeking clarity about what they read and want curated news. So what you're seeing now is the revival in the interest of magazine, as they are great storytellers. The role of magazines now is growing again. People are coming back to understanding good writings. In fact, the India Today magazine has been reimagined with that approach. So we do see a big future for it, but it's very different from the past, which we are going to see. There was a research which was done by Wednesday Marketing recently, which said that the number of magazine deaths, it must have surged. The deaths must have surged, but the outnumbered launches was 4 by 1. So it was increased. Same was with the number of copies being distributed. There was an average of 8,400 copies increase which happened. Exactly, if you look at the average price, things also price also increased. Monthlies, the magazine launch went up to 44%, and the number of one shots and annuals, it may have dropped to 60%, but there were like 177 products which was still existing in this competitive atmosphere. And this is just a recent survey which was done in 2020. So you can imagine one thing: the magazine industry is going to stay. Whatever people say, whatever have been talks that magazine industry is shrinking, magazine industry is dying. The print is not going to stay for long. The print may not stay for long, but their revival version, their what we say the digitalized version, is going to play game for us, because most of us, even if we don't are not buying the print version, like person like me also, we have 4 online subscriptions with me for different magazines, because Time, Newsweek, other magazines which I used to love reading every time. Similarly with the Outlook and India Today, I have been been a reader for them for last 17, 18 years. So I can't just switch on to a mode which is a digital mode for me. So there's a genre of people who will love, who would still love print and magazine as such, whether it's an online magazine or it's a print magazine. The future is there. The industry is going to stay for a long time. And we as journalists have a bigger and a better role to play now in the coming days, because we are being given more liberties, and more liberties, or I may say we have more brighter version of connectivity available to us through the digital medium. And that connectivity is going to stay, and that connectivity is going to make a major difference to the magazine journalism. And that exactly is what is a crux of my whole research, which I did on magazine journalism. Thank you so much, students, for listening to me. And I appreciate if you have some questions, which I can answer to you. I'll stop share my PPT, but you can ask me questions.
Yes, ma'am. That is very informational, ma'am, and very encouraging information you have shared. I mean, from very all the angles and all the topics have you covered. You know, from the types of magazines, and from the which paper we should use for the magazine. From that things also you have shared. And as you said, that magazine industry is growing. I mean, they are going beyond their boundaries. They are not just bound to the paper now. They are also digitizing themselves.
And most of them, if you see it, sir, now most of them are now have come with subscription models on the digital version. So yes, exactly. If we say they're not earning revenue, they'll be making revenues in the future, because we all are good people who want to read. We don't mind paying amount. So when they get revenues, I think nobody will stop. The magazine industry is going to survive.
Right. So with that note, we'll just move to the question which came from the students all the way. So our very first question is, one of the students is asking, as a student, can I start producing my own magazine?
Yes.
Do I need to register?
Yes.
Anywhere?
Yes. You need to register. RNI is the thing where you need to register your magazine. You can't just online magazine. You can start anyways. There's no problem in that. There's no registration. But if you want to go for a print magazine, definitely you need to go for RNI registration. There's a website where you can go, Registrar for Newspapers of India. They have all the details of how do you register your magazine and what are the formalities you should go for it. But for your online magazine, you don't need any. E-magazines, you can open anytime. There's no regulations for that right now.
So second question is, in a magazine journalism, how income or a whole economy works?
Income, are you do they mean in terms of a journalist, or are you means of advertising? What exactly is it? Okay, I'll explain in both the terms.
Yes,
I'll explain in both the terms.
Okay.
I'll explain in both the terms. Now, first I'll come to the students in terms of marketing and advertising of a magazine. See, marketing and advertising, when we talk about in terms of magazines, is a very, very important thing. But it is not in magazines only. Every industry, whether we talk about the print industry, whether we talk about any FMCG sector also, it survives on advertising and marketing only. If they don't advertise their product, they don't market their product, you won't come to know Maggie has launched out a new product. So it's similarly with a magazine also. If they don't tell you that Outlook is relaunching its new product, it's going to give you these articles, it's going to be more friendly with the people, they Career 360, which is a student magazine. It tells you about so many foreign universities, it tells you about so many, and they have articles on that. Now, there are two modes. How do we write? One is you have an editorial content. One, you have an editorial content. Then you have advertising in the newspaper where you see ads and all that. Second is your subscriptions, which happen. Fourth is how do we go about it? We have your classified advertisement. This is a source of revenue for the magazine. How do we earn revenue for a magazine? Then there's you have tie-ups, we have trade shows where if there's a specific magazine which is into plastic industry, if there's a trade show happening of plastic industry, they tie up with them. So those plastic guys, they give them money. So from there, they get a substantial revenue so that they can run their magazine because they cover the plastic industry or they cover the environment industry or anything. Like it's like that. Now coming to this is like how is a revenue model for the magazine. You earn through ads, you earn through promotions, you earn through your subscriptions and different promotional tools you have. Many other promotional tools are also there through which we earn our money. Now comes to the part of a journalist. How do you earn your revenue? Like one is you are taken in as a full-timer. When you're taken as a full-timer, then you join as a reporter, you go as you move on to be a correspondent. One as a different, like it's the same as a newspaper industry. We have an edit department, we have a reporting this thing. So if you join the edit thing, you join as a sub editor, or you join, they have everyone has their own definitions for that. Somebody calls it sub editor, somebody calls it copy editor. This is edit department where you are responsible for designing and editing the magazine. Then comes in a reporting thing where you write features, where you bring in the information. The reporters, correspondents, principal correspondents are these kind of people. So you join them like this. One is a field and one is a desk. The pay scale differs from both of them. These days, most of the companies, they don't prefer a permanent employees. We are taken up in as a contractual basis. So it is what is your experience, how good you are at your job, you're offered a salary in that way. And it's substantially very good amount of money. It's not that if you are a good writer, you are a good person, you have a good contacts, and you bring out good stories, you earn a lot. And nowadays, if you are a good magazine writer, you have lots of other opportunities also available to you, because when you become a feature writer, you have lots of blogging opportunities available to you. If you're a good travel writer, you can write blogs on the blogs for so many websites. So what is the thing is that we limit ourselves. The moment I say magazine writer, a person says, "Arey, magazine to kaam nahi karti hai. What salary will I be getting is 20,000 rupees." That 20,000 is immaterial. The name which you get from the magazine, India Today writer, that matters. For us journalists, it is a brand which matters. In marketing, there are two things which we talk about. One is brand selling. So once you become a brand in yourself as a writer, then you can sell yourself. So what are we as present? What we say is journalists, definitely we work for the society, but there's something every journalist has its own brand. So you can then sell your brand later on. If you're a good travel writer, you can write for so many travel blogs. They pay you so well. International travel blogs pay you in, like one of my friends, he just writes for them only, and he's earning 3 to 4 lakhs per month. So what do you need more than that? So one is make yourself as a brand. Make your writing your focus area. You want to be a travel writer, you want to be a feature, you want to be a women writer, whatever. Decide upon the topic, decide upon the beat, specialize. The more you do good research, the more you specialize, you will be in for it. Sorry, hello.
Okay, now is it audible?
Yeah, you were not audible, sir. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Did you ask a question?
Yeah. So there's another question is coming up. Is there any Indian magazine on earth journalism?
Earth journalism, or you mean environment journalism?
Yes, environmental journalism.
There are lots of them. Because earth journalism is not a thing which we say as such. We say environment journalism. There are lots of them. Most of the journal magazines also, like in Outlook, India Today, also they have it. Discovery, you can write for it. And if you just go on the Google and just type environment magazines, not only in India, why do you want to just stick to India only? All over the world now, you have an access to write for any magazines all over the world. And they're beautiful magazines. In India, definitely we have, you can write for the journal magazines with a focus on all these topics which you are saying about earth. Earth means environment, you mean environment only, because earth doesn't mean any thing related to coverage. It means environment. So when in environment, we have all these things. We have earth, we have nature, we have all your different locales. So you can write for any of the magazines. It's not specifically one specific magazine. You can write for Outlook, you can send your ideas to India Today. All the magazines, and just type on Google, you have the ample magazines in India which are just working on environment only. You can write to any of them. nature walk is there. Then you have a travel and tourism. There are so many of them in travel and tourism. Also, they have a specific feature on environment also.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So with that, we would like to thank you first, ma'am, to join us here and sharing some very important and very informational thoughts on magazine journalism, and it will be very useful to our students. Exactly. And from our college also, we would like to thank you to join us here.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you everyone. I mean, the students also, and sir, especially Deepak sir, because he makes it a point to call me, and that's lovely because I'm able to give some insights which we have learned in the industry for such a long time. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.